Hello. So I just had a odd experience that I thought was worth sharing because I know on this channel we talk about a lot of law of attraction concepts and try to kind of bring them down to earth. And at the same time, I want to emphasize that we can't really understand what the heck is going on, in my opinion, when it comes to a lot of these concepts. And someone like Coué is so wonderful because he explains these ideas, like about our imagination and our willpower and our thinking and our suggestibility. He explains them well, but then he says, I really don't know the limits of it, or what how it actually works, how the imagination actually works, how you somehow get what you want by suggesting it to yourself when it makes seemingly no logical sense that it could happen, and it still happens. Very hard to understand. And Coué probably explains it more logically and understandably than virtually any law of attraction teacher I've ever read, probably better than anybody else in regards to that. But there's so much that we don't understand and that constantly can humble us when it comes to this stuff. And I had a really odd experience, like I just said, this afternoon with my daughter, my soon-to-be 5-year-old daughter. I just wanted to share it because it's a good example of like a glitch in the matrix type experience that just is so bizarre whenever stuff like this happens to you. And honestly, for me, this stuff does not usually happen to me, so which is what made it particularly odd. Um, but anyway, my daughter and I were coming back from swim class. We always stop to get a donut at Dunkin' Donuts after swim class because she likes to do that. And there's a clothing store right next to the donut shop that's going out of business. It's like 80% off. So, it's relatively busy in both places. So I have both Vivi and I wear masks inside. So, Vivi got her little wallet and, we put our masks on and we went to the clothing shop and we looked around, for 10 minutes or less. She basically played around and I got my wife and I two nice long sleeve shirts, 80% off. Unbelievable deal. Usually $70, like $12. Or no, it was unbelievable. Great price. Anyway, we got two shirts. Viv and I left, went next door to Dunkin' Donuts, got into Dunkin' Donuts, waiting in line to get our chocolate stick. And all of a sudden, I'm like, Viv, where's your mask? And she's like, I don't know. Like, she just had it. And, or like, oh, did you drop it? So we're looking, on the floor of Dunkin' Donuts. It's not there. I'm like, oh, that's weird. We looked in her pocket. It wasn't there. So we got the donut, left. We got outside, looked on the sidewalk some just for a second because she had she's got her own. It's not like a disposable mask. It's like a reusable mask or whatever. So wasn't on the sidewalk. It's like no big deal. Well, you've got plenty of other masks at home or whatever. So we go to the car, open the door, and her mask is in the car, pristine, perfectly there. Um, the mask is there in perfect shape. And it blew both Viv and I away. We're like, how is the mask there? Because you were wearing it in the clothing store. We like both vividly remember her wearing her mask in the clothing store. I was like, Viv, you had your mask on in the shop, right? She's like, yes, I was wearing it. She's like, how did it get into the car? So I don't know. And she was wearing it there, and then I remember her wearing it at Dunkin', and then it was literally like she just didn't have it on at Dunkin'. I was like, where's your mask? All of a sudden, it was like it just wasn't there. And so I was like, this is really weird. And Viv was like, this is really weird. This is a mystery. And I was like, she's like, what was it? And it's actually really fun speaking to like a soon to be 5-year-old about stuff like this, because when you're that age, you're still trying to make sense of stuff, just even like we are, right? And basically, the conclusions we made were that um, either it was a perceptual thing, and we had gone to the clothing shop last week before Dunkin' as well, and we just assumed that we took the mask in and she had the mask on, and she didn't, and we left it in the car the whole time. If you want to give a rational explanation, I'm sure that's what the rational explanation would be. Um, Or the other explanation is that she had her mask on, as we know she had her mask on, in the clothing store and in Dunkin', and all of a sudden it was gone, and magically it's back in the car. And so the second option is that it's magic. Now, obviously, even me just explaining this, you're going to think, well, it's the first option, it was a perceptual thing, and, our brains tricked us into thinking we put the mask on her and that we went, that she had a mask on, but really she didn't have a mask on the whole time. But both her and I are convinced, or certainly were convinced, that she had her mask on. She had her mask on in the clothing store. As far as I remember, she had her mask on in Dunkin', and then all of a sudden it was gone. It was like I looked down, I was looking to get money or whatever, or looking for the donuts, and all of a sudden her mask was off. It's like, where's your mask? She's like, I don't know. And she's like, I had it on. I had my mask on. And I asked her multiple times, like, Viv, did you have your mask on in the clothing store? Yes, I had it on. I put it on. Magic. Glitch in the Matrix. How did she have it on? How did it disappear? And how did it end up back in the car like it never left the car? Again, logically, you're going to say, obviously, we just, it's perceptual. I'm not here to debate one way or the other. I'm relatively agnostic when it comes to this weird glitch in the matrix type stuff. The point is that our brain, in the very least, can trick us into thinking that we did something perceptually that we did not do. Or, even more oddly, it's an out of thin air manifestation where we didn't have it, it was really lost, somehow it was lost, or somehow it transported from Dunkin' Donuts, where I last saw her having it on, back to the car. And there's plenty of people who tell you that's what happened, that it's an out of thin air manifestation, as crazy as that sounds. I think that sounds pretty crazy myself, obviously, but the point is I don't know. And I think it's just fascinating that perceptually we can be so sure of something and then it's not true. Or maybe it was true, and then really the mask went from point A to B with no human volition involved. Except our imagination. And this isn't something that obviously that we intended. It just happened, right? And it wasn't like I intended, like when we were searching for the mask out on the sidewalk, like for it to show up in the car. Of course not. It was like, it's gone. The mask is gone. Either we didn't look deep enough in your pocket, it's already in your pocket deeper, or it's gone. Go to the car, open it up. The mask is right there. So, perceptually, there's so much happening in our minds that it's just very hard to figure out what is happening. And there's some very interesting theories, theories about parallel worlds, the quantum reality, all that stuff. I've read some interesting stuff about it. I've read far more bullshit about it. I'm not a big believer when law of attraction people talk about this stuff a lot of the time because I just don't think they explain it that well. But is there something to it? Perhaps. Is there something to our perception not matching up to what is actually going on, or what is actually going on being much more malleable in the present moment than we might expect? Certainly seems that way at times, especially when something like this happens. So, I usually don't make videos like this, but it's worth mentioning, and noting it when stuff like this happens. And I do think, in regards to science and this stuff, that this is the kind of thing that science is going to maybe be able to get more of a handle on, over the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. It's going in that direction. There's people studying this kind of phenomena. And, if you search the Reddit page of Glitch in the Matrix, there's just thousands of examples of stories like I just told you, and a lot more dramatic stories often than what I just told you. So, the point is that, like I've said, the point is 6 times in this video. There is no point to this video, perhaps. But I guess what I'm getting at is that it's good to stay humble. Always good to stay humble. And to be cool with knowing that you don't necessarily know what's going on, I did that podcast episode, Only Don't Know. Seung San, The Zen teacher said that. Great lesson. Socrates was all about that too. The one thing that I do, quote unquote, know is that when we go deep and connect with the moment, connect with God, if you want to use that term, things tend to feel better. And I don't even know how that's related to any of this glitch in the matrix stuff at all. In my opinion, that truth of going deep and connecting with that deepest part of you is almost something different than that. And that remains, glitch in the matrix or not, So I hope this helped some of you, and that you enjoyed my story, and have a wonderful rest of your day and evening.